Hello, this is Kari Fell. Welcome to my studio.
So I'm back in the dye studio today, and I'm going to be trying something new. A number of weeks ago, I picked up 6 new colors of dye that I wanted to try. These are Pro-Chem acid dyes, and I want to see what they look like on yarn. So I'm going to do these 3 here today. So the first thing to do is to go wind some warps. I have 3 cones of yarn that I'm going to use to make 3 different warps. The first one is Harrisville Shetland, and it is 100% wool, and this is a wonderful wool that doesn't look or feel so wonderful when it's on the cone, but once it's wet finished or even dyed, I suspect it's going to come into its own, meaning it's going to fluff up and become soft and beautiful. So this is 100% wool as well, and it is a 4-ply. This is from my stash. I'm not sure if it's available anymore, but this is a wonderful weaving wool. I think it was made for knitting machines, but it is really good to weave with. So I've dyed a lot of this, and I kind of know how it's going to behave. And then this is my new luxury cone that I'm going to wind the third warp with. And this is a merino and tencel blend. So 50% merino, 50% tencel, and it has a shine and a luster that's rather wonderful. So using acid dyes means that the merino will take the dye beautifully and the tencel probably won't. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that will play out. So we have the 3 warps in here. On this side is the merino tencel blend, the center the 4-ply wool, and on this side we have the Harrisville Shetland. And I suspect that all 3 will take the dye differently. I've mixed up the 3 stocks. What's very interesting is they are all looking green. Even the Terra Cotta looks green, which is fascinating. I find that fascinating. So these are obviously colors that are going to change when citric acid and heat are applied. I think I'm going to go with the Terra Cotta first. I'm going to add a little bit of water. Alright, I've mixed up the bottles of solution. So I've used 40 mils of the stock in each bottle and then topped it up. And they all 3 still look a little green. Oh, the Terra Cotta mixture has got a bit of a tint of Terra Cotta, but still green. Look at that. Oh, it's green. So I'm going to use the Terra Cotta first because I'm just curious to see what'll happen. There it is, green. I know it's not a mistake that this is the way Terra Cotta behaves. seen some other experienced dyers find the same thing. So, oh, you can see it changing color. It needed the citric acid, I guess. So you can watch it change color before your eyes. That's kind of cool. So I'm going to put 2 stripes of color across each. That way the colors can mix more and they won't be too separated. There won't be large bands of color. Save some for when I flip the yarn over. So make sure to put that in front of the terracotta jar so I know what it is. The next color I think we'll try is avocado. It's a lovely green. And some avocado down at this end. The Shetland's a very thirsty yarn. And the golden pear, which also goes on green. Oh, this is fun. That's going to go there. And on the ends, I'm going to do this to get it to mix. Maybe a bit of golden pear down here too. So now we've got 3 different colors on there, and they're not 3 different greens, they're 3 different, completely different colors. And I'm going to turn the heat on and see what happens. Oh, these are fascinating colors. I have a feeling it's not going to look like this at all as the heat carries on. Okay, this is fascinating. It's been probably only 3 or 4 minutes, and we're seeing the golden, what is it, golden pear show up. So this stripe here is golden pear. It came out as green, and we can see it's starting to look like that golden pear color, and there's a couple spots of it here. So the combination of the acid and the heat is causing the golden pear color to come out. I think I'll leave the camera on for a time lapse and we can watch this happen. Oh, look at this. Another 5 minutes, if that. And the Terra Cotta is looking very pink, and the Pear is looking golden. The Avocado hasn't changed at all. I can already see how the tencel and merino is got a shine to it. This is beautiful. I wonder how well it's going to take the dye. Only 50% of the fiber is going to take the dye in this one, so I have a feeling it's going to be a paler warp overall. It looks like the Avocado's got some blue happening here. The Avocado is changing as well. Took a little longer, but it's changing. Fascinating. Well, it's been only another 5 minutes, but we have seen lots of changes here. Camera is going to be dying soon. I'm going to shut it off. I'll take another look in 5 or 10 minutes. So I came back from my supper break. It's still quite warm. I turned it off while I went to go eat. But just want to see if any of the color absorbed it. There's still avocado in the water. Ooh, not everywhere. Ooh, lots of color has been absorbed. So here we've still got some white, so yeah, this will need to be flipped. Still lots of green in the water here with the avocado, but I'm happy with how the Terra Cotta and the Pear have absorbed the yarn, have absorbed the dye. So I'm going to turn it over. Not going to flip it end for end. We want the color to stay in the stay in the same areas. We'll look at the low points, how dark they got. Places. Interesting. I can't say I like these dark patches. Okay, I'm going to add some more color. color seems to have moved through the Harris Fill the best. And I don't see a lot of white on the Harris Fill. Feels kind of strange trying to add this Terra Cotta and it's coming out of the bottle green. So it feels like I'm putting the wrong stuff on. So I'm going to let this heat for 20 minutes. And then I'll come back and look at it. So it's been about another half hour. So I think we've got as much colors we're going to get with heat. So there's still a little green left. I suspect that that's going to absorb if we just leave it in the water to cool. So we're going to turn off the heat and let it cool down in the pan. So here's the finished and dried yarn. This here is the Harris Fill Shetland, 100% wool. And it was quite a tight and stiff yarn coming off the cone. It has sizing in it. It's a woolen yarn, so it has sizing in it for weaving, just to make it easier to work with. And it's not the most appealing coming off the cone, but once it has been wet finished, or in this case dyed, it fluffs up and becomes a beautiful fluffy yarn. The Shetland did not felt at all. It fulled slightly, but it didn't stick, which is wonderful because it usually fulls and it felts really well. So the heat process alone did not, like the boiling of the water, didn't even cause this to felt at all. They're all individual threads and they're not sticking. So because of the lack of agitation, it was able to be boiled and took it quite well. It's now a beautiful soft wool and I look forward to weaving with it. This here is the 4-ply knitting yarn, and it's actually stickier than the Harris Fill, but will still be quite easy to thread through a reed or a heddle to weave with. And the colors are nice and bright on this one. It's a little tighter of a spun yarn than the Harris Fill, so it looks and feels different. The colors are the same, but it'll almost maybe brighter in this one. Wait, and this is the blend. This is a Merino Tencel blend. And this is gorgeous. It has a shine unlike any of the other yarns. And that is the tencel in there that's catching the light and giving this a shine. This is really fun. I wasn't sure whether the merino and the tencel were separate yarns that were then plied together, but it looks like it isn't. It looks like the merino and the tencel were spun together and then also plied together, because you can't see a definite distinction between the wool and the tencel, which you would see if they were only plied together, because the wool takes the dye and the tencel won't. These are acid dyes, and they work on animal fibers, protein fibers, and not plant fibers such as the tencel.
So this is a funny aside. After filming and before editing, we went on a trip around the Cabot Trail, and I just thought it was quite interesting that I was seeing the exact colors that I had just finished dyeing in my studio.
So here are the 3 finished warps. We have the Harrisville Shetland 100% wool, the 4-cell 4-ply 100% wool, and the wool tencel blend 50-50. So when they are chained up like this into a warp ready to weave, you can see how this one is a little more muted than the other two, and that's because of the beautiful shine of the tencel as it catches the light. These 3 warps are ready to weave. I think I'm going to put the Harrisville one on my rigid heddle loom next, so we'll have a look at what they look like when they are woven up. These 2 I will probably end up putting into my online store eventually, so you can look for them there. Here's a shot of what looks to be a mess on the front of my loom. It's not really, it's actually quite orderly. I have 3 different warps here that I'm threading through the heddle in a certain pattern. So I just pick threads off of the warps as I need them. So I'm about to start with this one. As you can see, here's my cross just with the loose tie through it, and then it's not hard, because I wound it 2 by 2, it's not hard to find the next 2 threads to pull through. So I'll take these 2 and then pull them through here, and then I can move on over to this warp and grab the next 2 threads. The reason why I'm doing it this way with a cross instead of direct warping is because I've dyed the warp chains. So I wound the warp chains first and then I dyed them. If I was just winding off of a cone to create the warp, and I would direct warp. So I do direct warp, except when I've dyed warps the correct length and color scheme that I'm looking for, and then I just take the warps and thread them through sort of the indirect way, I guess you would call it. And just to clarify, I had cut the ends in order to feed the threads through both the slots and the holes. And so now I'm going to tie these onto the back beams in groups of 8 or 10. You can feed them through just the slots, then wind on, and then thread them through the holes, just like you would do if you're direct warping. But That doesn't always work when you're doing multiple warps, because sometimes you have an odd number of ends coming through, and so I just cut the ends and feed them through in through the slots and the holes. And here's the finished weaving. I made it a v-cowl because, you know, I'm on a v-cowl run right now, where the warp comes around and weaves it back into itself as weft. One of these days I'll get tired of weaving these. But the dye job has worked out really well. There's a nice, interesting variation as it moves down the length of the scarf. Here's the dark patches that we saw in the pan, and they've ended up being a dark olive color. And I like how the 2x2 look has come out, and I think this is because I dye my warps 2 strands at a time. So when it's laying in the pan, two are on the lower level and 2 are on the upper level because of the cross, and so the strands dye differently as a result. The ones on the bottom have taken probably more color, and the ones on top maybe a little lighter or a different color when I flip it. You know, I'm not exactly sure, but most of my dyed warps, the 3-yard ones, have this interesting 2x2 pattern happening in the dyeing, which I don't mind at all. It gives another interesting subtlety to it. So this light coming in the window is making this a little bluer. In reality, it is a much warmer color.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Also, leave a comment below. I like to hear your thoughts. Thank you for watching.